numbers. This seems to be a topic that most of my students struggle with almost every year. So I try to make it as simple as possible in a way that they will understand. So I'm going to show you kind of what I do, what I've taught my students, and maybe this will make it a little bit easier so you guys can help your kids at home. So estimating is like rounding, quotients is the answer to a division problem, and compatible numbers are numbers that work well together so that when you divide them, they divide evenly with no remainder. So hopefully you have a good foundation with your multiplication facts because they're going to come in very useful with finding compatible numbers. You want to find numbers that are going to divide evenly. So first thing I tell my kids to do, for example, if we have 396 divided by 22, I do like it written this way for compatible numbers purposes, but you could also write it like this. I'll show you this one. 396 divided by 22. You could write it like this. Again, I find the kids are more successful this way, but you could do either. So I'm going to start here. So first thing we're going to do is change our 22 to 20. You want your divisor to end in 0 because it's so much easier to work with a number that ends in 0. So we're also going to change our 396. So here's what I tell them. After you change your divisor to the nearest 10, we're going to underline the first digit, which is 2. Then we're going to underline the first 2 digits of your dividend. And now you're going to ask yourself, what's a number close to 39 that divides evenly with 2? And hopefully your students will know that the answer is 40. So my 39 will change to 40, and the 6 will become a 0. So now I have 400 divided by 20. Now, here's what's cool about this. You start out by just putting the answer to the basic fact. So what is 40 divided by 2? Now, anytime you divide a number by 2, you're just cutting it in half. So half of 40 is 20. So I'm going to put 20. And then because you have a 0 at the end of each one, if I take a 0 from here, I can also take one from here. And it's just another way of showing you that it really is 40 divided by 2 is 20, which is the exact same thing as 400 divided by 20. You still get 20. So 20 would be a reasonable estimate for this question. Now, again, the reason we're going to want to find reasonable estimates is because when you're actually doing the actual problem of 396 divided by 22, I need to know that my answer is going to be close to my estimate. Because if it isn't, then I know I probably did something wrong and I need to go back and rework it. So if I were going to do it this way, just to show you, the 22 again would round to 20. 396 would round to 400, and we figured that out again by underlining the 39 and the 2. 39, number close to 39 is 40. That divides nicely with 2, and that 6 becomes a 0. So again, 40 divided by 2 is 20. Okay, so that's one way to go. So let's take a look at the next example, 375 divided by 78. Start off again by changing your 78 to the nearest 10, which in this case is going to be 80. Copy down your division sign and underline your first 2 digits. So now I'm going to look for my basic fact. Again, what is a number close to 37 that will divide nicely with 8? So if you know your facts, this is going to be easy because you should just be able to think of the number 40 because 37 is close to 40 and I know 40 divides nicely with 8. But if you don't know your multiples, then all you got to do is think about them. So 8 times 1 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. 8 times 3 is 24. 8 times 4 is 32. 8 times 5 is 40. And by listing your multiples of 8, you should be able to find the one that's closest. So I'm going to use 40. 40 is a compatible number. Okay, so our 37 is going to change to 40, and any extra digits here just become zeros. So then I have my kids again underline that basic fact, and let's just answer it. What's 40 divided by 8? 5. So again, if I can take off those extra zeros because we don't need them, it's the same thing, 40 divided by 8. So 5. 5 is a reasonable estimate. All right, let's do one more. First up, 28 is going to change to 30. Again, you want it to end in a 0. And then we have 232. So underline the first two digits and the first digit of your divisor. So again, let's look for a number close to 23. You want it as close to the dividend as possible so that when you divide it, you're getting a very close estimate. So something close to 23 that divides nicely with 3. Now, if your child really knows their facts, they should be able to just shout out the answer. If they don't, again, just list your multiples. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 4 is 12. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times 6 is 18. Again, we're trying to get close to 23. 3 times 7 is 21. Oh, that's pretty close. It's only 2 digits away. 3 times 8 is 24. And I'm going to stop there because 24 is even closer to 23 than 21 is. So we're going to use 24. So 24 becomes part of my new division problem. So 23 changes to 24 and the 2 changes to a 0. So now I have 240 divided by 30. And I tell my kids, look for your basic fact. So I underline the 24 and underline the 3. Another way you could go about this is to get rid of the zeros first. It's another good strategy. So if I look at the smaller number first, my divisor, if I get rid of that 0, that's really like dividing that by 10. So 30 divided by 10 is 3. But it means I got to do the same thing to the other side. So I can also take away this 0. If there were 2 zeros here, I'd still only be able to take away 1 0 though. You got to do the same thing to both sides. Okay, so I divided both sides by 10 essentially. So 30 became 3 and 240 became 24. So now your student should be able to very easily see the basic fact of 24 divided by 3, which is 8. So 8 is a reasonable estimate. So that is compatible numbers. I really hope this was helpful. There are many different methods of doing this, and I will try to share some other videos as well because there's lots of different ways people explain it. So find the method that works for you, and I hope this was helpful.